Good morning, Sarah Hepla.
Good morning, Nancy Ramelman. I have a cold and my hair is dirty. How are you doing?
I'm good. Does the morning sun in my face show my age?
A little bit.
A little bit. Well, that's all right.
Um,
Everybody, if you're not a paid subscriber yet, tell them, Sarah, what are they going to do?
oh
What are they
yeah,
going
you
to
got to
do?
subscribe to YouTube so that you can see Nancy's real
No,
age. It's
no,
it's so high. It's so high.
no. You got
No,
to
I'm sorry. What are they supposed to do? Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And then you're gonna kiss me and Kat Rosenfeld. It's gonna be a
This is
makeout
we're going
session.
to start this
Oh
again.
no, we're not. We're not. I'm doubling down. This is how it opens. I would be remiss if I didn't say that we had a Zoom hang this Sunday.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you reminded me of that. That's good. No, since she didn't pick up my cue, you should become a paid subscriber because it's my birthday in 2 days, and that's going to be a birthday present to me. That's all I wanted to say, Sarah Hepla. That's it. Maybe I have to get our guest to say it. Mike, do you wanna say it instead?
Yeah, you led me away from your home.
That's right.
You saved me from being alone. You stole my heart, and that's what really hurts.
That's right.
You know, no one
Aww.
knows this. No one knows this, but when I was in college, I did stand-up comedy. And one of my jokes, I did jokes about classic rock songs, and one of my jokes was Rod Stewart, Maggie May, when he sings it in concert. Remember, he sang it about a woman who was 50. Now Maggie May is 80 years old, and this was like 40 years old, so Maggie is dead. And I did a bit about Maggie walking around the nursing home talking about having sex with Rod Stewart. But what I'm saying is everything comes around. And of Rod Stewart's lyrics, it's better you're an essay in glamour, please pardon the grammar, which is not grammar and doesn't exactly rhyme.
We're here with Mike Pesca this morning, everybody, in case nobody grokked, and we're glad to be because just first of all, because we like Mike, we love Mike, the great Mike Pesca, but also because Sarah has a burning question. It's not burning me. It's like I have a small UTI. Sarah has a
Okay.
big UTI. It's really burning.
Oh my God. This is our worst podcast, Mike. I'm sorry you're on it. It's
No, it's good. Knee jerk Nancy and Sarah Heppela's burning questions. And then we play the sounder. Burning questions. And then we have cranberry juice or something
I do
very
have a
calming.
burning UTI of a
Okay,
question.
I'll be the cranberry. Go ahead.
But before that, I'm gonna do a brief overlong intro of our guest, if that's okay, just to get
Can I
everybody on.
interrupt it like Michael Lindsay?
Oh my God, please! Would you please just fight
No, I'm
me
not. That didn't
to
happen.
the
I was in
death?
college. Never
Would
knew
you
him.
just fight
I
me
don't,
to the
why are you
death?
saying that?
It it
It's her, not me. It's her,
it
right?
it was
Right?
amazing. I feel
It
like I
was.
graduated into a new level of podcasting after that interview. Um, Mike Pesca is the host of the Gist
No, I'm
podcast.
not. Why would you say that? No, I'm not.
That's not true. I know that it's the longest running daily news podcast, but he's so many other things. A former sports broadcaster and NPR contributor, a one-time Jeopardy contestant, a stand-up comic,
I guess.
the most frequent male guest on Smokin', which makes him the voice of men, whether he likes it or not. He's part Italian, which means I'll have to ask him about Mario Cuomo. And he once did an NPR podcast called On Gambling with Mike Pesca, which means we'll probably have to talk about this sports gambling thing I've managed to learn nothing about. And we'll talk about other things, maybe the great feminization, maybe hormones and testosterone and women's sex drives. We'll find out. It's always a cliffhanger when Mike Pesca is around. Mike Pesca, welcome to Smoke 'Em If You Got 'Em.
Thank you. I hope it's not a cliffhanger, right? I hope to answer more questions than I give, but I want your burning questions. That's what I want. Your hunka burning questions.
It's true. I mean, I think my burning question goes like this. I keep seeing headlines that say sports betting scandal, and I keep deleting them. So I'm like, I don't need to learn about this. I don't need to learn about this. But it's one of these things I thought it was going to go away, and now it's cresting.
Mm.
And I'm getting to the point where I'm behind the news. Now, Mike, I am friends with sports broadcasters, but I am not a sports watcher myself. And so I grew up in the mold of rock songs and theater productions.
Me too. And sports.
Well,
All of them.
you're a Renaissance man.
This was
I'm a limited time only good time gal. I don't know what that meant. Anyway, what's going on? Why is there a sports betting scandal? And why should people that don't follow sports care about it? What part do you want to take first?
All right, if I was to compose the lead of the story to hook the non I care about sports betting, I would say something like marked cards, X-ray tables, fixed shuffling machines, an NBA Hall of Famer, the mafia. These are the elements underlining the FBI's
Yeah,
investigation into the biggest sports betting scandal that could bring down billion-dollar enterprises. So
that's pretty good.
these,
I liked
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Honestly, it was the mafia.
It was there's still the mafia. And when we say the mafia, it wasn't like one or two connected guys in the indictment. Now, this is the Cash Patel FBI, so maybe they throw a lot of stuff in there. I hope these, I don't hope, but I hope they have more on these supposed mafia guys than they do on Jim Comey. Anyway, yeah, it's Lucchese, it's Gambino, it's Bonanno, it's all the mafia. It's very good. Almost all the five families are there. Although I think one of the five families has been folded into another. I don't know, like Hardee's became, I don't know. What did Hardee's become? They got folded into another. Carl's Jr. I think they
I
combined.
was gonna
And
say, I thought all the mafia families owned restaurants, Italian restaurants at this point.
yeah,
Uh,
probably. I mean, they're in for a couple. Like they own pieces of Italian restaurants. We saw how Artie Bucco got blown out, and then Tony bought in.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
do you remember when they were all in the porn business?
yes, because it was, and yeah, they owned the porn business out of Cleveland. Everything, and this goes to gambling, right? Everything that was a vice, the
Yeah,
mafia saw a market opportunity, and they
right.
got in there, and they owned a lot of gay porn because that was even more of a vice. And then, as America decided that our vices could be monetized for government income, the mafia got pushed further and further aside. But I think what people don't realize, especially people who sold us on, well, we're going to have sports gambling and this will eliminate the mafia. The mafia still has a role, and we'll see some of it in what's going on. And a big role that the mafia has is they'll extend you credit. You could bet on an account, unlike the sports gambling websites where you have to put your credit card down and you have to pre-fund your accounts. So what happened here was, when you bet on sports, you probably think, I'm going to bet on which team wins or loses. And you're probably vaguely aware that there are some variations to that. Like, do you know what a point spread is? Do you know what the over under is? You ever hear these phrases?
We use those terms, but we don't know
Yeah.
what they mean.
We as a society. Right. So the point spread is a way to give the worst team a few extra points to sort of even out the game. And that becomes an exploitable opportunity in that professional athletes really don't want to lose games on purpose. It's a pretty desperate and degraded person who does that. But it used to be you can convince them, hey, listen, you don't have to lose. You just have to win by fewer points than you might have otherwise. And this was a big sports betting scandal that Henry Hill of
Oh, of
Goodfellas.
Goodfellas fame.
Right. He fixed some games with Boston College, and he didn't convince the players to lose games. He convinced them to win by, instead of 5, win by 3. Very hard to do, but players are open to that. Now there's a type of bet, now that there's online gambling and a proliferation of types of bets, where you can bet on an individual player's rebounds.
Yeah.
You can bet on, and there was a baseball betting scandal. You can bet on if the next pitch is going to be a strike or a ball. And so pitchers would come into a game and they'd say, all right, I'll throw it in the dirt and make a friend of mine $10,000, which is kind of a stupid thing to do because they got caught. But anyway, there's all this exposure for individual players to do really stupid things that they themselves control. Because that's another
Wow.
thing about sports betting.
Wow. I
Like if you're
hadn't
trying to
thought
have,
about that,
yeah,
that taking a dive, this classic idea, that might have, controlled sports back in the day, but you can't really do it now, has all these niche, individuated narrative arcs where like a ball or a strike could that I did not know that, first of all.
yes. Yeah, and that's really exploitable. And another part of it is because players don't like to throw the game and they don't like to see themselves as corrupt. But they probably see themselves as in a corrupt system. They say to themselves, we can get into the psychology and the economics of why they might throw a game. They say to themselves, look at all the money the leagues are making. Every third commercial is telling the fans to do it. How can there be an immorality? This is how you justify it to yourself. How can there be an immorality if all I do is
Yeah.
I know that this guy's hurt. I mean, he's walking around with a limp. He's not going to play. I just have to make a call or send a text and say, hey, guess what? LeBron's hurt. And that literally happened.
That happened.
One of LeBron's best friends, a former player, part of his entourage, what I might call at this point a hanger on, or at this point a former hanger on,
Right.
said LeBron's not going to play. Now, with that information, the gamblers put their bets in. It doesn't affect the game. LeBron wasn't going to play anyway. All of these opportunities for bets, all of these places where you can bet, all of these niche bets, they allow a crazy proliferation of exploitable and illegal activity. There's an exact analogy to when the great financial meltdown happened. And it didn't happen based on, the basics of the economy. It happened based on complex financial instruments that, because they were linked to other instruments that were linked to other instruments, and mortgages and the third tranche of these complex derivatives, this could bring down an industry in a similar way that all these avenues for bets are so complex that they allow perhaps for a real shakeup of sports betting and maybe even the NBA. And then there's this extra element, which is fun, which is the mafia had fixed poker games that some of these NBA stars were there as an inducement. Hey, look, it's Chauncey Billups. What a great guy. He is in the NBA Hall of Fame. He's in this poker game. And they would lure individual victims, John Doe number one in the indictment, into the games. And they would use all these contraptions to fix the games. And in this case, literally steal $1.5 million from this one guy.
Oh my God. Okay, wait. So who's implicated? It's not just the mafia. Like, is this stuff that's going on DraftKings and places that I've heard about?
Yeah. I don't think they named the betting platforms,
Okay.
but the online bets would have had to be made on big platforms that are DraftKings or the Hard Rock platform or FanDuel or the ones that are legal everywhere in different states in the United States. The Mafia poker game, that was an in-person game that took place in a couple locations in New York City. Pretty nice townhouse downtown, which the New York Times reports John Philip Sousa used to live in. Totally random detail that didn't
Hey.
even make it in the report, but the New York Times was like, we got to add something. So we have the John Philip Sousa detail. 3 cheers for the red, white, and corrupt.
Yeah, look at you.
So, yeah, and they literally had an X-ray table that could read the cards when it was on the table. And my favorite is the glasses and the contact lenses that could read a marked deck. Do you know what a marked
I
deck is?
do.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a marked deck?
I have not.
It's really fascinating because, so, picture the back of a deck of cards. There'll be a pattern, like a speckly pattern. And if you don't know to look for it, it just looks like random speckly patterns. But if you do, sometimes there'll be a wheel, and the wheel will have 12 different, like a clock maybe. And so one of the numbers of the clock or positions of the clock will be marked, and that will correlate to the number of the card. And then in a corner of the deck, there'll be different patterns. And then one of them will be a color, and that will be clubs, spades, hearts, or diamonds. But imagine that if it's not visible to the naked eye, if it's only visible with special contact lenses. It's fascinating.
I'm looking forward to this Scorsese movie.
Definitely.
But there's cultural trends in here that I would like to understand a little bit better, if that's okay. Nancy, I know you're going to have a lot of things to say here, but I'm still catching up. One of the things I have to drop back and ask you about is I'm aware enough to know that Pete Rose was kept out of the Hall of Fame
Yep.
because he bet on his own games. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And this was such a scandal that one of the great baseball players of all times has been denied proper placement in this Hall of Honor. And yet, we are now fast forwarding to a moment where betting is so normalized as to be like, rampant and worthy of this giant investigation. Can you help connect the dots to how we got here, like from there to here?
Mm-hmm. Well, Pete Rose recently did something that did allow him to enter the Hall of Fame. Do you know what that was?
Mm-hmm. He died.
He died. Yeah,
Oh.
that was useful. Yeah.
Well, that always clears your record.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes it opens it up anew, but
Sometimes there's analysis that begins to pour in at that point, or, according to his will, his papers were to be burned, but his executor chose not to, and now we don't like him. Yeah, so Pete Rose did that at a time when there was a clear prohibition and also a cultural norm against gambling.
Mhm.
And the commissioners then took a really hard line. And if you're a fan of Rose, you could say an overly harsh line. But he did something very wrong, which is even though he bet on his own team, it was clearly against the rules and it affected the outcome of games. Because if you're trying just to win that game instead of the whole season, as a manager should be, there are all sorts of things you can do, like overuse one player who might be hurt or might be tired instead of saving him for future endeavors.
Gotcha.
The reason that baseball especially is sensitive to this is that gambling almost undid the entire game, and this was the 1919 Black Sox scandal. And then
Mm.
they bring in the commissioner Kennesaw Mountain Landis. Quick side note: I was very intent on naming my son Kennesaw Mountain, and my
Yeah.
ex-wife, my wife at the time, and I give her credit for this. This is the best thing she ever did. Put her foot down and said, "You will not be naming this our boy Kennesaw Mountain." So he is not Kennesaw
Yeah,
Mountain.
that's, the right call. The 1919, is it Red Sox or Black Sox? Red
It's
Sox?
White
no, the team
Sox.
was the White Sox, but they
God, these
became known as
fucking
the Black
Sox.
Sox. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
the White Sox scandal, that sounds like a movie.
It was a movie, 8 Men Out by
That's
John
right.
I
Sayles.
knew it.
That's right.
Yep,
Great, really
yep.
great movie,
Really great movie.
and a
Sayles is
really
great.
great
Yep.
book by not Isaac Asimov. I forget the Asimov who wrote it, but it was so bad and it threatened the game so much, and was an inspiration for at least a little part of the Great Gatsby. Right, Meyer Wolf was Mayor Lansky who fixed the games. That they were foursquare against this. They drummed gambling out of the game, and gambling really became the worst thing you could do in baseball because
Gotcha.
they were up to all sorts of other nonsense with drug taking and with carousing, but not with gambling. And the other sports followed suit. And then online gambling, or the potential of online gambling, presented itself. Now, before then, since gambling was controlled by the mafia, there wasn't real momentum to legalize it because it would be very hard for a commissioner to say, well, what a commissioner, a capitalist commissioner, and the owners would say is it'd be really great if this illegal market, we could capture some of that, but it's so illegal and it's so sullied and it's so connected to the Lucchese's and the Gambinos and not, we, the upstanding baseball owners and the Wrigleys and the Fenways or the Yankees, who are horrible people. They owned the Boston Red Sox. But then when online gambling came available and we could eliminate the mafia, and it seemed to be, especially when Adam Silver, who's the commissioner of the NBA and the first one to really get behind it, it seemed to promise eliminating a lot of the downside of gambling. For instance, and I believe this and I still think it's true to a large extent, before there was online gambling, it was very hard to see who was placing what bets. Some mafia guy in Arizona could place a bet, and you wouldn't know it necessarily unless they incorporated the Las Vegas odds makers. But different guys could make bets and make the games corrupt without there being any mechanism to know it. Now, with online gambling, it was a lot easier to see, what they call odd movements in the line. So you can see, why is Arizona State, which normally gets $1,000 bet on it, $2,000, why do they have $50,000 bet on it? And when that side of the bet, at that point they would stop allowing future bets. And then this really did happen with Arizona State. And then they would investigate why, and sometimes they would find out that the game was corrupt. So the
Hmm.
promise was, we're going to get some of this revenue, and we'll be able to root out corruption. Online gambling actually helps us detect corruption. It did, in the way that the stock market, odd movements directly bet on different stocks can tip people off that there might be insider trading. It's just what I said. The possibility of all these derivatives, the equivalent of these complex financial instruments, this was the Pandora's box. And of course, this is the story of every capitalistic enterprise, right? Or every internet enterprise. It comes with a
Sure.
promise. There's some reform promise, but really, like I said, Pandora's box, or it gets way more complicated. There are unintended consequences, and now there's going to be almost a religious fervor of pulling back. There's going to be more of a movement to stop this. And the other big part is, as much as I'm, I guess, pro legal gambling, or I actually think it's can be and often is a fun hobby or a fun pastime. I can get into that more if you like. It's
Yeah.
terrible for young kids. It's terrible for, you could bet at 21, your brain's not formed until at least your mid 20s. But anyone who's 17, anyone who's 18 can get online. And it's really, really, really hurting young boys.
Well, what isn't? But
Yeah.
I actually, this is kind of central to my next question, and then I'll let Nancy get in there because I just need to understand a few things. One of them is, I don't gamble. I don't like gambling. My high school prom was a gambling night, and I walked in, got a bunch of tokens, and handed them to the person next to me. I have no interest in this, but I've learned that the history of Dallas is a lot of illegal gambling. um there were gambling halls in Arlington, and until kind of this crackdown, it sounds like in the 20s and 30s, maybe even later than that in Dallas. Um but gambling is so fascinating to men particularly, and I don't get it, and I wonder if you could help me understand. Like, the way that I would explain it would be that the male brain wants competition, and is sort of engineered, whether biologically or by like culturization, to 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 look for ranking and hierarchy and
Mm.
wins. And this almost hijacks that part of the brain in a way that earlier sports culture, like actual playing sports, would have done. But people do that less and less now. So it's more now betting on the things. What is your, obviously you know gambling well enough that you had a podcast about it. So what do you think is the appeal?
It's what you said, plus they want validation that they're right. So they want competition, and there is a rush of endorphins with gambling, and addicted gamblers will tell you that it wasn't even winning that brought them back. It was the excitement of the unknown. So this is a lot like other endorphin inducing behaviors, shopping, eating, all the other ones.
But
But with,
this would
yeah.
be very tempting to like husbands at home that might, like porn is going to be a danger alley, drinking might be a danger alley, but gambling would seem, dads and boyfriends and people kind of like sitting on the couch. It feels like a soft rebellion or a soft
Yeah.
vice.
Right, right. Because I get, with food, we do have to eat, don't we? And with gambling, there is I mean, how I think I do it is make very small bets and get more entertainment out of an otherwise somewhat entertaining game than I would have otherwise. And
Right.
I do have to say, as much as I don't like this aspect about myself, I do like being right. And maybe this gets into the Helen Andrews thing. Maybe as our culture becomes more feminized, the imperative to be right and to prove yourself right or insightful, maybe that's less present with women. I don't know. I think a lot of guys would say, oh, you can't argue with your wife or just always say yes, dear. But on abstract things, on things that aren't interpersonal, on things that have an actual definitive score, the stock market and the points of a game, people do like to be right. And
That's
yeah,
really interesting. You've just introduced an aspect that I hadn't contemplated. Men as always, sports have always been a bit of male space, right? But I think especially in the last 20-25 years, I would imagine it has become this space where you're freed from some of the social strictures that have been introduced at things like even at colleges, where you're not supposed to be aggressive in your argumentation, or you're not supposed to mansplain. It's kind of like, I always think, when I think about things that like men like to do, I imagine them all peeing standing up against a wall,
uh huh.
and it's just like a grand celebration of peeing against a wall. And I know that's a metaphor, but
And
There
what's the
is
wall in the metaphor? It's
Hey, listeners in listener land, and for those of you on YouTube, maybe watching it, thanks for being here. This is the end of the free portion of this episode. If you would like the entire episode, gotta head over to Substack. That's smokeandpodcast.substack.com. Become a paid subscriber. Many ways to do that. You get the full episodes and you get some other niceties and etc. and etc. And if you are over here on YouTube, hit that subscribe button as well. We appreciate it. Tell your friends. Thanks.